I think when you look back at last season, Brendan Rodgers is only really getting started this summer. If you look back at last season when the players that were brought in, let's face facts, they weren't Brendan Rodgers players, and the players that brought in weren't to the good enough standard because half of them are leaving this summer. And the injuries that we had last season, Brendan Rodgers had a lot of injuries last season. We had to deal with that. And we never made an excuse of it. We just got on with it. And Brendan Rodgers did say at the beginning of that season, he says, for those that don't believe in me, come back at the end of May. Where's all the doubters now? Where's all the naysayers? Although Paul, that's on the channel, is one of the biggest naysayers, and at least he's still consistently being against Brendan being here. But Brendan Rodgers has been talking to Celtic TV, and he said this.
I think it's the mentality of the preparation work that we've done all the way through pre-season. I think from the first day back in, the mentality was really positive, and players have been working very, very hard in the training. Coach has been working very, very hard on the training field, and obviously the management of all of that has meant that we arrived into the beginning of the season really synchronised, collectively really strong, and yeah, we've been able to continue with that. So yeah, it's been really good from the very first day of pre-season.
It has been good for the first day of pre-season. It's not often that Celtic go through a pre-season where they win games and they play some nice football. It's usually a time where they do bring in a lot of the B team and players that aren't going to, but they did quite well. We are needing players in. We'll talk about that in just a second. And the one and only Jerry McCulloch. If Jerry McCulloch was a Celtic player, he'd get more stick than anybody. Absolutely more stick than anybody. He seems to get a lot of stick online for the way that he handles interviews with the media at Celtic, and Brendan Rodgers in particular, and his half-time chat on Celtic TV. But he did ask Brendan about the start to this season and how good it's been. And Brendan Rodgers' reply was,
yeah, well, repetition is important. I think if all those patterns and movement patterns that you're looking to create, but also you're having to stimulate imagination and creativity as well. And but for us, we're very structured in how we play. There's freedom and flexibility within that. But what lots of people won't understand will be the attacking side all comes from the defensive attitude. You know, we see the speed in the game, we see the attacking combinations, those moments all are very, very good. But passing the ball and pressing the ball are like twins. They come together. And have you noticed how well the team is pressing the game and how they're doubling up around opponents and at times having 3 and 4 around the opposition player? That is really what provides the attacking rhythm in the game. So that's something that we really focused on over the course of pre-season, and then that marries in with the offensive side. But there's very, very few of the top teams that you find in football that play great football and then aren't so good when they don't have the ball.
Aren't so good when they don't have the ball. Yep, Brendan Rodgers talking about the start that we've had to this season, and you've got to say it has been a good start so far. Can they keep the consistency? Well, Brendan Rodgers, even though if we lose Matt O'Reilly, who looks like he will be leaving this week, Celtic can keep the consistency going, Brendan Rodgers thinks, and with the players that are in the squads, they can walk straight into the team, and it's like nobody's missing. It is like nobody's missing. Tell me what you thought about Brendan's comments so far. Now, one person that knows the manager quite well, you would say, would be the youth coach. Yes, Stephen McManus, and he has been talking to some of the media, and he reckons that the most important person at Celtic is going absolutely nowhere. Doesn't matter when players will come and players will go, and Stephen McManus knows all about that. I mean, he's been connected to Celtic for a very long time, and he will have seen some good players come and go and some bad players come and go. But he reckons that Celtic just need to just take stock because Brendan Rodgers is just getting started, he says. He says, even if the manager doesn't lose his cool and he just stays nice and calm and focused, Brendan's just getting started. Last year was a difficult year, a challenging year campaign for everyone at the club with injuries to key players, but not always being available, and we've seen that during the season. There were some stormy waters last season, we all know that. Can we navigate this season without there being any hiccups the way that there was last season with the amount of players that were out injured? Brendan Rodgers, the manager, the staff, and the captain who bring the calmness, says McManus. No matter what's going on the pitch, that feeds through the entire club, which is nice to see. Brendan Rodgers is the manager when I came back and played a bit part in bringing me to the club. It was great. It was absolutely great. Some people move on, but the core remains, and the quality and the culture and the work continues. Everyone who knows how important it is to stay calm and composed when they're at their jobs. And this is how Celtic achieve success. The club is in a strong place, says McManus. We all know that we're in a strong place financially. On the pitch, the fans just want the best for the club. And when you look at the way that we've been playing at the start of the season, it's been a cracking start to the season. We've scored 2 goals in the first half of every game. The intensity of the way that Celtic have been starting has been absolutely fantastic. Can they maintain that for the rest of the season? Well, that's why Brendan Rodgers does want to get some more players in, because they know when it comes into the nitty-gritty of playing on a weekend and then a Wednesday, and that continues right up until around about January, you will need to use squad players. You will need a bigger squad, and you will need to use, well, not so much a bigger squad, but a better bench. And can the manager get the players that he wants in this week? McManus insisted that the manager will relish the task. He returned to the club. McManus is obviously a youth coach, and he's absolutely thrilled with his position. It's important when you become an employee here. Obviously, the football club department, there are some good people behind the scenes. Brendan is terrific. Everyone in the department in the last few months has seen Brendan come to the fore, come to show the elite manager that he is. The way that he communicates to everyone, the way that he speaks to players, the way that he deals with the chaos outside of the club. Yes, the media chaos, the negativity, the Scottish media at their own, that just want to question everything and try and bring Celtic down. And let's face it, they've been selling Celtic's best players for the whole summer. The way that Brendan communicates with the players is absolutely fantastic. Everything he said was going to happen ended up happening last season. He's the total winner, he says. It's all about the way that he conducts himself day in, day out. It goes right through the staff, and there is a real togetherness at the club, just now. Everyone that plays a part, which is great. When you get a momentum kicking on, you can see how another successful year could be in the making. Rodgers set the tone, the mindset, and it's all been about setting that tone. We all know that it's going to be an exciting season this year. We're all kind of dreading the Champions League after what we saw last year in the Champions League, but we're 1 year further forward, and we're not going to be playing players that haven't sampled the Champions League. I think last year when obviously Dyson got sent off, he had sampled the Champions League. That was bad enough for us. When Gustav Lagerbielke got sent off, the manager then said, look, it was because of the players' inexperience at that level. Gustav Lagerbielke is the player that is going to be leaving Celtic this week. It's still open. It's up in the air whether it's going to be a permanent move or if it is going to be a loan move. Now, one player that has been linked with Celtic over the summer and is a player that Celtic are interested in is the Belgian player Arne Engels. He does play central midfield. He can also play right back. Not that we need any cover for the right back, but Brendan Rodgers has said that he's been looking if we need at least one person to come in the central midfield position, and if Mattarelli leaves, we need 2. Can they get Engels in the door? That's going to be an interesting one. And then there's the Alvin Sanchez one. Alvin Sanchez is a player that Celtic have been linked with. He's another central midfield player coming out of Switzerland. We spoke about him a couple of days ago. He would only cost around about 2.5 million, they're suggesting, but it's around about 4 or 5 million they're now suggesting. But can they get the French-born player that's actually on fire in that central midfield? He is further forward as a central midfield. He's more an attacking midfield player. It would be good to get those 2 players in. Brendan Rodgers and Celtic have also been linked with Aaron Connolly and as a third choice striker. And then there's the Owen Beck one. That one seems to be just ticking over nicely. It looks like Celtic could get their wish. Brendan Rodgers could finally get his man with Owen Beck. But there could be still more players coming in. It wouldn't be surprised if there's 5 players in total come in the next, we're down to 9 days now. 9 days left in the transfer window, including today. So there's really 8 days as of tomorrow. Can Celtic get the finger out and get those players in? It's all going to be nip and tuck, as they say, isn't it? It's going to be last minute stuff as normal. But we've had some good players come in the final couple of days of the transfer window. So am I worried about it? I wish Celtic had dealt with the thing a lot quicker this summer, but it is what it is. And on that note, have an absolutely fantastic day, Celtic fans all around the world.